Welcome to the Safe Village, a community for everyone who cares about student safety and well-being. My name is Sydney. I'm the CEO of Sassion, and my guest today is Sean Duca. Sean is the Vice President and Chief Security Officer for Asia Pacific Japan for Palo Alto Networks. Sean, welcome to the Safe Village.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. I've heard some of your previous talks where you talk about security is not just about products, it's about people, process, and products. But today there's so much going on the security landscape. And I'd love to ask you, Sean, what's top of mind?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a question that for myself, I'd say what's top of mind is just making sure that people are actually aware and know what's actually sort of happening out there. You know, to the point around people, process, and technology, many times I see people that turn around and go, oh, you know, we've got one of those boxes, or, you know, our security team are taking care of that challenge. But a lot of the times it's more a case of, well, what's the organization doing? Or what are the exec leaders actually doing in the business, the board of directors? Do they understand what risk actually means to them? Because cyber risk is like any other risk. And just more a case of, let's ensure that you incorporate that as part of your overall risk management strategy.
Yes. So as we think about the Safe Village audience, which is made up of schools and education departments and school districts, how does that sort of play out for them specifically? Like, who should have what role? What kind of conversations should be going on? What kind of maturity levels should we be looking for in schools?
Yeah, totally. I think the key thing is making sure that, let's just say, the leadership team of a school understand what the risks and challenges are and the threats even towards the school and even the students. The key part is the people that are actually running the operational side of it, so driving a lot of the technology, they need to obviously be aware of it as well. Because when we think about the challenges of what could impact a school, we see that ransomware is obviously targeting a lot of the schools and school districts. We see that, you know, people are still going in using phishing to grab information about students, because that in turn will become potentially identity theft or some sort of identity fraud in the future. But a lot of the times it's just getting access to systems. You know, as much as people think it's all about stealing information, a lot of the times people are breaking into a school, you know, except from a cyber context, and actually just saying, I'm going to sit here and start to rent out the computer processing power to other people so they can do it for their own nefarious activities. So from a school context, it's always understanding you are still a target. It's not a case of it only happens to, you know, governments and the big banks. Everyone is potentially a target. So it's making sure that everyone is aware and constantly keep on driving and reinforcing that message around, you know, education. You know, don't click on these particular links. You know, don't do these particular things, and it's just reinforcing that all the time.
Yeah, so I mean, there's such a focus on educating the kids, but of course the school is made up of more than just the kids. There's a whole bunch of teachers and support staff that all could be subject of, you know, phishing exercises and, you know, funding someone else's Bitcoin mining.
Totally. Yep.
So thinking about, again, our target audience and the schools, one of the issues there is everything's moved to remote learning now, right? And this has now become the new normal. I think just before the pre-recording, we were talking about, I've got 3 kids who've been doing the learning from home. What have you seen happen globally from the perspective? You know, this has not happened just in Asia Pacific, but it's happened globally. What's happening now from remote learning? How is this changing the response that someone like a Palo Alto Networks with their product set and their solution set is approaching the market?
Yeah, so if we sort of cast our minds back to the start of the pandemic, so for me, it was March 16th was the day that we pretty much turned around and said, okay, everybody go home. I think it was pretty much the same for many other people. Schools pretty much said, let's go to remote learning. So everything changed at that point. And if we think about what every organization and school had to go through, it was a case of, how do we rapidly scale up a remote learning system? You know, some people managed to do it quite well, others struggled, others weren't able to get people sort of up and running straight away. But I think all in all, we eventually sort of got there. Now, if I think about where people are starting to move to, it's a case of this is, to a large extent, kind of the norm now. And we may keep on seeing sort of little outbreaks here and there that pop up. We're going to keep on reverting back to sort of remote learning. But I think the key part here is, how do we ensure that we do this in a safe and secure way? Because if you think about it, everyone basically went to school and we protected, let's just say it was the moat around the castle. And we always protected the school. But when everyone basically went home, all of a sudden, we weren't as protected as we used to be. And the attackers knew that. So pretty much 2 days after we all went home, all the students went home, started remote learning. The attackers basically said, let's now attack the homes. Now, if you think about it, I've got a laptop. Someone's going to try and get to my system at all times. But if they can't get to it, well, they're going to probably access the 20 other internet-enabled devices that are at home. So all of a sudden, we lost a little bit of visibility. The students effectively are still doing their work, kind of going through it, but at the same time, the threats and challenges are now targeting them at home, as they always were, but probably even more now.
Interesting. And you guys, mean Palo Alto Networks, you've announced recently a new product for the home.
Yep.
You want to talk a little bit about that? That's quite...
Yeah, so Okio Guard was announced last week. And the key thing around Okio Guard is it's a device that effectively will protect every single device that's inside the home. And it just simply provides that same, technology, the innovative technology, the same security efficacy of what we've got in that's protecting schools and enterprises and governments all around the world at your home. So it's a little device, everything's going through it, everything's being filtered and secured at that same point, at the same level. And that is simply just providing that access for any internet-enabled device. So it could be a TV that could be exposed on the internet, we're securing that. And that's how we can start to defend our homes the same way that we could defend anyone that's remotely working from home, doing remote learning and the like.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. I think it sort of solves a big missing piece, and you're right. There's more than your laptop that's probably school issued. There's other devices at home, but this is how things could jump around. So this is a very exciting announcement by you guys. So thinking about your role, Chief Security Officer for Palo Alto Networks Asia Pacific, you've got quite an important education job to do here, right? What is it about what you do, if others knew a little bit more, understood or appreciated, or had empathy for, it would make your life easier in terms of the mission that you're driving with and for Palo Alto Networks?
It's a good question. So if I was to break that down, I would say the objective of what I'm trying to achieve is, how do I shape and change the narrative of what security means for anyone? And if I think about what I've done the last 6 years, and even before Palo Alto Networks as well, it's always about awareness, education, keep on raising that. And the needle slowly has actually, it's always improving. But at the same time, we've also got a dynamic and changing environment. The schools keep on changing. We never probably thought about remote learning many, many years ago. Organizations have done different things as well. The threat has also changed. If I think back to, 21 years ago when I started in the industry, we had an antivirus problem, and I was working in an antivirus company, and that was one of the largest threats that we had. The previous 20 years, we'd collected 500,000 pieces of malicious software. Fast forward 21 years, that's what we probably receive on a daily basis. And malware is one of many threats that we see today. So in terms of actually what drives me to how do I keep on sort of moving forward? It's just making sure that we keep on sort of chipping away, that people understand what is the risk to them. When we move to this cyber world, we don't physically see something, so it's hard in some people's minds to actually secure it. So the way that I try and think about it is through storytelling, make it, use analogies, and the way that I can sort of break that down is for people to try and understand. I'm a fan of storytelling as opposed to PowerPoint. The way that I think about it, PowerPoint was invented in 1990. Storytelling has been around for 100,000 years. Stories are always going to sort of win, but it's just constantly chipping through. And sometimes I could tell someone the same thing 5 different ways, and then finally the penny drops. So, it's just constantly getting out there, making sure that people understand and keep on sort of moving forward with it as well.
Fantastic. That's quite a good segue, because I want to lean in a little bit about on your career and your experience, and really thinking about security is an exciting industry. Cybersecurity is an exciting and emerging industry to be in. You've obviously done very well in the industry. You've had some great organizations that you've worked for. If someone is 5 years behind you now, what kind of advice would you be giving a Sean Duca from 5 years ago in terms of navigating their career and getting to where you are today? We've got a VP role and a regional role and doing awesomely well.
Thank you. Firstly, look, I think there's a couple of things. First, I would say, don't ever stop learning. For me, it's always about resharpening the sword. The more that we can keep on doing it, the more that we can practice, the more that we can learn, because the role itself, in terms of being in a security role, it's constantly changing. It's never one of those things you learn at once and that's it. So keep on thinking about different ways to understand, all the different challenges. And cybersecurity is very, very broad as well. But find out what your passion actually is. And then maybe that's the part that you start to pursue as well. The other part would be, take some risks and challenges. And what I mean by that is, get out there and network. If you're an introvert person, force yourself to actually network with people. Obviously, it's hard during the pandemic, but you can still connect with people online. I receive many requests on LinkedIn for people to connect. Want to have a quick little 15-minute chat, get some advice, do that. Reach out to people because I don't think there's anyone that's going to turn around and say no. And so it's more around how do we actually sort of pay it forward, so to speak. So just keep on, reaching out and learn from others. I think the other part that I would say is think about what is it that you really want. I never envisaged this role 21 years ago. I probably never envisaged this role 10 years ago. But just think about what is it that actually excites you. Many times I've met people that have got a very strong passion around communication. They want to get out there, they want to teach. Go out there and be that educator around cybersecurity awareness and education. That may be something that excites you because you want to get out there and coach people. So try and find out what actually excites you. You could be the person that loves programming, go down that path, follow it. Because I think if you can wake up every single morning, high five the ceiling, and have that drive and passion, that's going to always keep you sort of going, for the years to come.
Fantastic. Well, definitely, this is not the only time we've spoken. I've been, I had the pleasure of participating in different events with you and also being in the audience watching you. That passion and energy that you talk about is always a constant with you. So I'm imagining it's partly a personal trait, but partly because you've aligned to your passion and your purpose. And so that makes it obviously easier. So you're walking the talk, as they say.
Yeah, totally. I think the way that I've always seen it, people gravitate to people that are passionate. If I was to talk about the technology from Palo Alto Networks, I actually believe in it. And I believe in the strategy of the company. And if people don't see that, people are going to go, well, if you don't believe it, why am I going to believe it? So I think that's a big thing. So, follow your heart, follow your dreams and go for it.
Fantastic. So, look, I think you've given us some really important things to think about. If I could sum it up, it's not just about a piece of technology, it's people, process, and technology. The schools listening to this, departments of education, district schools, understand that the leadership of the school needs to be educated about how cybersecurity is another format of risk, and the risk landscape is changing and changing very quickly. And it's not, I think, good enough to keep saying it's IT's problem. We don't know. I think more and more we're going to start seeing directors have liability around these kinds of things. So education is important. Understand what's changed is an important aspect. Very exciting to hear about the Okio product. That's exciting coming in. And in terms of thinking about a career, Sean's advice is always obviously keep learning, but take some risks, get out there and network, align to what excites you, and every day you will be buzzing. How's that for a summary, Sean?
Awesome. You were taking notes. That's good.
Very good. Well, Sean Duca, thanks for being part of Safe Village, and I wish you all the best.
Cheers. Thanks, Sydney.